Theater is a genre that allows you to tell a lot of stories. You can teach through theater. You can learn through theater. When we study theater, we're studying history. As an actor, you had to get into the history, the psychology of the character. But theater is a live genre of presenting a story.
Okay, I'll say places, stand by.
I do that to everyone.
Key. Key sound.
Edgar Allan Poe is basically, especially from the 1800s, he is the king of the macabre. And so having the opportunity to tell his stories is really exciting to me. Afternoon evenings with Poe are based on 3 short stories that I have adapted by Edgar Allan Poe. The Imp of the Perverse, The Telltale Heart, and The Black Cat. Even though it's macabre, it's like fairy tales, and I like fairy tales. I love fantasy. So when the actors come in, they had to do 2 monologues. They did a classical and a contemporary piece.
I did like the fact that they did add a couple more components to their auditions, not just the monologue and the sides, but they also had me do like an improv. And I believe it was Miss Blue who was like, "Garden, you're so in love with gardening, just tell us about it." And I was just like, okay. And I felt like a little crazy little kid talking about tomatoes, like, I love these.
It was actually pretty fun for me. I used monologues I already had prepared, so I just really had to relearn them and find that emotion again. And after that, it was pretty easy. And then they kind of made me did little weird stuff during the audition, but I kind of got over it, got out of my comfort zone.
But this is what it's really about, the beauty in the stars.
They're coming into an environment that they need to know what that environment represents. A table read is everywhere. If you're doing movies, there's a table read. You're doing plays, off-Broadway, on Broadway, whatever, there's a table read. And during my process, it gives them a chance to meet who they're working with, who their characters are, who they have to play off. In my process, I usually have at least 3 days of table reads, which allows me to get into their heads, allows them to get into my heads, get into their fellow comrades' heads.
I didn't realize it until I started learning my part, until like this was part of my audition. They handed me a paper, told me to read this however you wanted to be read. And the way I did it in the audition was how it carried into the thing. So I was just like, oh, so y'all knew what y'all was doing when y'all casted me with this.
My first time seeing and reading the script was when we did the read aloud, the table read. And I was actually really interested in it. The way that the actor of the man read it, it was really like intriguing. It pulled me in, and I was like, dang, this is gonna be real good.
As me and my scene partner read through it, it felt like good chemistry. So it made me excited. And I was just excited to work overall with it because it was something new compared to what I've done before.
We are just slowly fainting. So that even if it's in his break, he won't give the second faint until once you're in position. I always say that I like to direct the soul. Now, you really can't direct the soul, but that's what I'm looking for. If I am true to the intent of a playwright, and I can get an actor to be true to that intent, especially when it comes down to the character, and what is that center of the character? What is that, what motivates that character? Then I've accomplished what needs to be done.
And I think one of the most important things, in my personal opinion, is what other people's characters say about your character. Because it's an outside perspective compared to what you just think about you all the time. Outside perspectives are important. Be in the moment. Always be in the moment, because you gotta know what your character is going to do, even if your character don't know what it's going to do.
When I read the short stories, the first thing I read was The Imp of the Perverse. And it's a very short story about this person who's incarcerated. He's in jail for killing somebody. But in reading The Imp of the Perverse, I kind of look at that particular story as his philosophy. You know, when we talk about his macabre, he talks about the imp, the perverseness, the imp of the perverse, you know, and talking about how that leads you down certain paths and stuff like that.
It takes a lot of self-control to not reach the point of E.A. Poe in my scene. Technically, yes, there is a imp of the perverse controlling our actions. It's called a conscience. He pretty much just took the idea of a conscience and made it into a fairy tale. You can relate to it because it's just a human who did something bad and then regretted it afterwards and then blamed it on this figment of his imagination, the imp. That imp of the perverse. It was impossible to resist its attacks.
The imp of the perverse is timeless. It could take place in any time period. So there is a imp, which is a large lizard of sorts, and you have the prisoner. And so the prisoner costume was obvious, the orange jumpsuit, white tank top, white shoes, typical, stereotypical prison outfit. The imp, on the other hand, there was a bodysuit that was ordered. It got, I don't know what happened to it, but it never made it to us. And so we had to shift and adjust.
That dog and his chronic had to go.
I cast Doc here because when I gave him the sides, he understood it from the jump. And when he came to audition, and he's a freshman, you know, but when he came into audition, he knocked it out of the park. I sat there and said, oh, he understands what this is about, you know, and so that's why he got cast.
The reason I got into acting was because I basically think about the process of things and how things work. So I really I just wanted to know how it worked behind the camera. So then I just pretty much became obsessed with doing it because it's fun.
Inclination. Book from the edge, but you don't. The chronic, with the sickness, dizziness, and horror of the thought.
In the Telltale Heart, one of the operative words you'll hear is talking about schizophrenia. And so that's really the through line, you know, dealing with what schizophrenia is. The character in that, he kills somebody and he's having these delusions and hallucinations about certain things within the piece.
I think Telltale Heart was my favorite. Not just the story, but the time period. There is a elegance of the period, and it requires you to hold yourself differently, hold your posture differently because of what it is that you're wearing.
Chase is another freshman. Watching her in her audition, she had a presence about her. You know, there's a way that she carries herself. You know, because you know we all characters are colored by whatever's inside of us. And I just saw something about her. She's a beautiful woman, you know, and that particular character, she's playing a psychiatrist. So that psychiatrist has to be very pulled up, you know, and very academic. And she has that type of delivery that I was impressed with at the audition.
I went to a performing arts school, Benjamin D. Floyd, Creative Visual Performing Arts Academy. And in middle school, we had to audition for a major, and I chose theater, and I've been studying theater ever since. As far as the character, she's uptight, she's strict, she's kind though. She's really understanding, and you can see in the scene that she's really trying to be understanding of the man, but she's also being really stern with the detective. In this situation, she seems not scared at all of the man, but personally, if I was there and that man was freaking out the way he was freaking out, I'd be scared. I would have left the room, can't lie.
It's beating. Beating, don't you hear it?
Pardon?
You villains! You villains! You mock me through your guise of smile and talk!
There is nothing.
It's unbearable! It's out the boards! It's here! Here, tell them up!
The Black Cat setting is basically alcoholism and how it affects the alcoholic and how he deals with a person as well as an animal around him. Domestic violence is shown in this. You know, it's not a domestic violent piece, but you get the gist of the fact that, okay, he's kind of violent, and he takes advantage and stuff like that.
With the show, we wanted to show that it was also repetition of domestic abuse, but I wasn't domestically abused. It was a scene where it was going to look like it, but that was one of the moments where it's like I stood up for myself.
The Black Cat was more modern. We wanted them to look like us. And so whatever was comfortable, she works from home, the wife works from home, the husband is a drunk. And so we wanted them to be comfortable and feel comfortable, because it could be any one of us.
Kiana, who plays his wife, is a Morgan grad. She's out in the world right now doing professional theater. When she came in, she knocked it out of the park.
I went to a Christian elementary and middle school, and we always did something for Christmas and we always did something for Easter. And that was my introduction to the performing arts. And then by the time I got to college, I was like, okay, I kind of want to focus on this a little bit more. So college is when I really put like boot the ground, really put the work in and retained it as well.
Well, the design process really came out of my head. I told J.R. Shore, I told him what I wanted. I even kind of did my own rendering of what I thought the set was supposed to be, what I thought it was. And he took it and ran with it. Everything is very minimal, almost Brechtian in style, and that was the concept I was dealing with. Brechtian, not a lot, no walls and stuff like that. It's very sparse stuff, just enough that we get the story. It's really character and text driven.
We've circulated your wife's pictures around the county. If she's out there, we'll find her.
As an actor, your job is to do your homework. How does this actor think? Where do they come from? Where do they live? What's their relationship to the other characters? So it's a lot. Acting is not easy. People think it is, but it's not easy. It takes work and research.
There's always going to be challenges in productions. Challenges when you're in a space with a bunch of creatives, big personalities, but we all have a common goal, which is get the job done.
Understand the dynamic of Theater Morgan. I understand the dynamics of theater. And I understand stuff happens. So it was like being patient with each other and being able to just be like, all right, we're gonna get here. Because at 2 o'clock night, we were all upset.
To trust the vision. At first, I was a little worried about what was going on, especially when we first got the eye. But in the end, it obviously all came together.
I don't think any artist is going to tell you they do what they do for the money. I don't think any educator is ever going to say they do what they do for the paycheck. You have to love what you do as an artist. You have to be passionate about it. That way, when the rough patches do come, you understand it's a rough patch and not the end of the road.
First of all, these pieces are out of the norm for Theater Morgan because we're dealing with the macabre. In all 3 of these Poe pieces, it's negativity, and the thing is, it's there for you to see. So it's really an entertainment. There are people right now who are excited to come see it because, oh, I read Poe in school. Oh, I saw Poe, so that's the draw. And like I said, it's different for Morgan because they've never done anything this as morbid as this is.
I guess I just want them to appreciate the performance and acknowledge the work that was put into it, because we worked with a whole bunch of different people and it took a lot of energy out of all of us, and I just hope that they enjoyed the experience.
We went into the cupboard, took the money out of the cookie jar.
Like I said, I have mixed genres. I've got dance in this, I've got sound, I've got music, I've got dance. It's not a musical, but I have all of that in this piece. So for the students, they get a chance to try different things. As far as the legacy, well, Theater Morgan's doing Poe. They've never done Poe. So the legacy comes down to, well, they did Poe, and y'all should have seen it because it was macabre, but it was good. I'm just saying,